Welcome to a world where every family secret, betrayal, and shocking twist comes to life. Here, silence isn't golden, it's explosive, and long hidden grudges collide with unexpected twists of fate that will leave you speechless. Imagine years of distance, resentment, and hidden agendas finally unraveling, revealing the fragile, complicated bonds that tie us together. Watch as sudden fortune exposes true intentions, long-buried secrets surface, and emotional confrontations ignite, transforming ordinary moments into tense, heart-stopping drama. Loyalty is tested, love is challenged, and every decision carries the weight of consequences you'll never see coming. This is more than storytelling. This is a front row seat to real human emotions, shocking family betrayals, and the ultimate reckoning. If you crave suspense, raw emotion, and stories that keep you on the edge of your seat, you're in the right place. For 10 long years, silence had been louder than words. Every holiday, every birthday, every fleeting celebration was marked by absence and avoidance. The distance wasn't accidental. There had been whispers, choices, and small betrayals that had festered into a chasm wide enough to swallow a lifetime. It had been easy for everyone to assume that resentment alone had driven the wedge, but beneath it was something far more corrosive. Secrets carefully buried, truths twisted until they no longer resembled what had actually happened. And through it all, the husband had watched, a quiet witness, sometimes complicit, often oblivious, letting the tension grow until it could no longer be contained. Then, fate intervened, in the form of something that had seemed impossible, a sudden, unimaginable windfall that made every carefully guarded grudge suddenly feel fragile and absurd. With wealth came exposure. The daughter, once indifferent, now reached out with careful smiles and rehearsed words, trying to erase a decade of silence in a single phone call. But the quiet observer had learned the truth about appearances. They could be deceiving. She had learned the sharp edge of betrayal, the sting of loyalty ignored, the quiet anger that grows like a storm behind closed doors. And what was worse, the husband's own carefully hidden actions were surfacing, long-forgotten promises broken, unspoken loyalties that were never meant to be questioned, and secrets that could fracture more than just one family bond. Every attempt at reconciliation carried an undercurrent of tension, as if the house itself remembered the years of neglect. Conversations that should have been simple were riddled with suspicion. Smiles that should have been genuine seemed calculated, weighed against the backdrop of greed and regret. And all the while, the weight of what had been endured, the humiliations, the coldness, the silent witnessing of betrayal, formed an invisible armor, sharp and unyielding, ready for the reckoning that had quietly been building. In the end, the years of silence had not softened, they had sharpened the understanding of who could be trusted and who would pay the price for pretending otherwise. For years, the quiet resentment simmered beneath the surface, barely noticeable to anyone else, but impossible to ignore when it finally erupted. Every interaction carried a hidden edge, every smile a subtle question. Who could be trusted and who had been pretending all along? Then came the sudden change, the kind that shifts the balance of power without warning. A lottery win, a fortune that no one could have anticipated, transformed every glance, every message, every casual visit into a calculated act. Suddenly, the true colors of people who had seemed indifferent were impossible to hide. The daughter's charm, once absent, returned in carefully measured doses, each gesture a test, each word a probe to see if the distance could be erased. But it wasn't just her intentions that were revealed. Underneath the polished surfaces, the husband's secrets began to surface too. Old lies, small betrayals tucked neatly away, and decisions made in quiet moments of selfishness now glared under the harsh light of scrutiny. Friends and family who had appeared loyal suddenly looked like actors in a play, and each revelation sharpened the sense of betrayal that had already been years in the making. Conversations that were meant to feel normal were charged with tension. A casual comment would expose hidden truths, a lingering glance would hint at unspoken grudges. Wealth had peeled back layers that years of distance could not, exposing the fragility of bonds that had seemed permanent. Every secret, every deception that had been buried for a decade now had a voice, and the effect was undeniable. Those who had ignored, dismissed, or betrayed suddenly seemed vulnerable, caught between the desire to reconcile and the fear of being exposed. It became clear that money wasn't just fortune, it was revelation. It was a mirror reflecting hidden intentions and forgotten promises, forcing a reckoning that had been long overdue. And in that reckoning, the quiet, steady knowledge of what had been endured gave power, patience, and a clear sense of justice to every decision yet to come. The truth had finally risen, sharp and unforgiving. The moment finally arrived. A reunion that should have been simple, almost mundane, yet carried the weight of years and unspoken words. Every glance was measured, every smile laced with suspicion, as if the air itself had absorbed a decade of bitterness. What was meant to be a cordial exchange quickly became a battlefield of emotion. Questions that seemed innocent carried hidden accusations, and every answer revealed more than it concealed. The daughter's voice, once distant and indifferent, now trembled with a mixture of curiosity, guilt, and calculated charm, testing boundaries that had been carefully erected long ago. Beneath the surface, resentment had not faded, it had hardened into a quiet, unyielding force. The sudden wealth was more than fortune, it was a revelation, a catalyst that forced long-hidden truths into the open. Conversations that had once skirted around reality now confronted it head-on. Secrets about the husband, carefully masked for years, began to unravel. Decisions made in private, choices that had affected everyone silently, now emerged under the sharp light of scrutiny. Friends and family could no longer pretend, and each lie or omission became a flashpoint, igniting raw, unfiltered emotion that had been simmering for too long. Every exchange was a dance between caution and confrontation. The tension was palpable, a mix of longing for reconciliation and the instinct to protect oneself from further betrayal. Past hurts collided with present opportunity, turning smiles into weapons and casual remarks into pointed reminders of what had been endured. The room seemed smaller with each unspoken thought, heavier with each glance that dared to pierce through facades. And through it all, the husband's role became increasingly clear, not just as a silent observer, but as someone whose own hidden missteps added fuel to the fire, whose choices had shaped the fragile lines of loyalty, trust, and love that now trembled under exposure. The reunion, meant to bridge a decade of silence, instead became a crucible. Every word, every gesture, every unguarded moment carried the weight of betrayal, opportunity, and revelation. And when the final truths had surfaced, the reckoning could no longer be postponed. The past and present collided, leaving only the consequences to follow. The shift was subtle at first, barely noticeable, but the impact was undeniable. What had once been a landscape of distance and indifference now teetered on the edge of upheaval. Power, long hidden beneath years of silence and avoidance, had changed hands. Every glance, every word, every polite gesture carried a weight it had never held before. The daughter, who had ignored and dismissed, now approached with caution, curiosity, and a touch of desperation, as if testing to see how far the balance had shifted. The husband, too, could no longer hide behind routines and half-truths. Decisions made in private, promises broken quietly over the years, and hidden loyalties all came under scrutiny, exposed by the sudden clarity that came with new circumstances. Every interaction was charged, electric with tension, and every conversation became a battleground. Words that had once seemed harmless now struck like daggers, and the carefully constructed facades of friendship and family loyalty began to crumble. The quiet strength that had been building through years of neglect and betrayal now became a force to be reckoned with. With each revelation, the true nature of relationships surfaced. The greed, the jealousy, the selfish motives that had lingered unnoticed in the shadows. The husband's role, once overlooked or forgiven, now revealed cracks in character and choices that had quietly reshaped the family's trust. Trust, loyalty, and love were tested in ways that no one could have predicted. Alliances shifted, apologies came too late, and the realization that intentions could never again be taken at face value was unavoidable. Poetic justice hung in the air, palpable and inevitable as each action met its consequence. The daughter's attempts to reconnect were measured against the backdrop of past betrayals. The husband's secrets weighed alongside every hidden slight, and the power that had been ignored for so long became the ultimate arbiter. In the quiet aftermath, with the dust of confrontations settling and every truth revealed, it became clear that nothing would ever be the same. The reckoning had arrived. Thank you for watching. If these stories of hidden betrayals, shocking secrets, and family drama kept you hooked, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a twist. Join us for more suspenseful, heart-stopping tales that reveal the truth lurking behind every family secret.